Here for you today is another evidence-released video for the Israel Keys case to support our initiative at Crime Culture Media to make sure that we are completely transparent with you and give you all of the evidence that we have, and to support our new docu-series on Keys, which is the most extensive look at his life. It's called Israel Keys Life in Full Detail. There are 3 episodes totaling 6 hours, and it includes some never-before-seen evidence. To watch it now, click the link in the description, and you can get 50% off if you're coming from YouTube. This interview is over 2 hours long and was conducted on May 8th, 2012 with Keys, and here it is.
This is Special Agent Steve Payne with the FBI. Today is Tuesday, May 8th. Time is approximately 2:55 p.m. by my watch. Following will be the following will be a interview with Israel Keys, date of birth January 7th, 1978. Also present with me is going to be Task Force Officer Jeff Bell, and we're here at the Anchorage office of the FBI. Have all the other ones. So Israel, I know you already know us, but again, my name is Steve Payne. I'm with the FBI, and this is my partner Jeff Bell, Task Force Officer. He's working with us here. And I just want to confirm, obviously, when we picked you up in the jail, you were willing to come over here and speak with us today, and that we didn't interrupt your visit with your attorney or anyone else. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in here. I know that we've gone through this before. I apologize, but it's something that we've got to do for a variety of reasons, as you're well aware. So just kind of bear with me. So we're here to speak to you about crimes unrelated to Samantha Koenig. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same sheet of music with
Right.
that. You understand that, right?
Right.
Okay. If you do start talking about Samantha or anything to do with the Koenig case for which you're already charged and represented, then we're going to have to terminate the interview and we'll have to take you back to jail. Do you understand that?
Good to know I got a way out.
Yeah, that's true. And this is all up to you, right?
Right.
We've told you this before. It's up to you to come over and sit down and talk with us, and
yes.
you can choose which questions you answer and which ones you don't, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Okay? So with that in mind, we're going to run through your rights. I know you know them, but we want to make sure we cover them. With respect to the other crimes, obviously we're not talking about anything to do with the Koenig case. You have the right to remain silent, and you have the right to refuse to answer any questions. Anything you do say can be used against you, can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to consult an attorney before speaking with us, or you can also have an attorney present if you wish, either now or in the future. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you before any questioning if you wish. Do you understand these rights as I've
Yes.
explained them to you? Are you willing to waive these rights?
Yes.
And speak with us now without an attorney present?
Yes.
Okay. You also understand that Mr. Kurtner has been appointed by the court as your standby counsel. It's kind of a new term to me, but
yes.
Standby counsel. Do you want him here while you're speaking with us today?
No.
Okay. And this morning, Jacqueline Walsh was appointed,
Yes.
has filed a notice with the court that she also represents you in our discussion with you about other crimes.
Well, it's standby counsel.
I'm not totally sure if they're the same thing.
I know she's trying to say something else, but yeah. I never agreed to have anyone represent me. The only reason I have standby counsel on crimes unrelated to to what I am being represented on is because the judge ordered it as standby counsel.
Just to clarify, you don't have a lawyer appointed to you for anything other than Samantha Koenig?
And I would have preferred to not even had standby counsel. I can speak on my own behalf, especially on things unrelated to what I already have a lawyer appointed for.
Okay.
And the only reason I had standby counsel appointed on other matters is because the judge ordered it. I didn't have any say in the matter, so.
Okay, and that's fine. And I'm just telling you that she's filed a notice with the court to represent you in the discussion of other crimes unrelated to Koenig. And with that in mind, do you want her present when you're speaking with us here today?
No.
So we've mentioned this already, but if you decide to answer questions now without an attorney present, you have the right to stop answering at any point in time. You don't have to answer our questions. You can stop in the middle, that type of thing.
Right.
You understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And the only thing that we ask is the same thing that we've discussed before. Rather than lie to us about stuff, just tell us, hey, I don't want to answer that.
Right.
Okay. Are you under the influence of any medication or drugs today?
No.
Okay. Are you having any trouble understanding where you're at or what's going on?
No.
Okay. So with all this stuff in mind, you still want to talk to us?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize for that. I know it's somewhat formal, but it is what it is.
Right.
Obviously, we weren't present the last time that some folks spoke with you. My understanding is that Mr. Feldis was there. It's a couple of guys from ATF.
Yeah.
They were there as well. And we were working on some other things actually to do with this particular case that day. And in talking with those guys, the issue of some property and stuff came up. And we've been kind of working on that, among other things. And so I'm going to kind of turn things over to Jeff, let him talk about that. Okay.
Since I'm the APD employee here, APD was initially in charge of this,
Right.
investigating this. The items that you were talking with Mr. Feldis about wishing Kimberly to have back were taken under a state search warrant.
Right.
So those are the issues that we've had to work with over the last week or so to try to accommodate that.
That's what I figured, but yeah, I'm following you.
Okay, so I'm thinking that, in fact, we have an order here for a couple of items that were a little easier to work with. And I know we had talked with you earlier about some tools. So one of the things I want that are Kimberly's, not necessarily yours, that you want her to have so she could sell maybe for money or something like that. And we never specifically got that information from you. So sometime today I'm going to want to get that so that we can work on those items. All right?
Okay.
But what I do have is we did get the district attorney to agree to the couple cameras of Kimberly's and a cell phone of hers. All right.
Not the car, I take it.
Well, the car is going to be a little bit more complicated for obvious reasons.
Not really.
Well, it's deciding how much evidentiary value there is to an item. Now, the car is something that I don't think it's unsurpassable for us to convince them that the car might be something that we could eventually get back to her. But I can tell you that the bosses are going to want. They're going to have to see a reason to give the vehicle back because of what they deem as evidentiary value in that. I mean,
there's no evidentiary value in it.
Well, one of the things, and I'm just throwing this out here, I'm not trying to talk you into doing something you don't want to do, but one of the things, like with the cameras and the phone, that stuff, it's essentially digital equipment, and so we can copy the information that's in that. Well, as you can imagine, it's a lot more difficult to copy a vehicle. You really can't do that. And so
if your evidence technicians haven't collected every possible bit of evidence in 2 months off of that car that you could possibly get, then you need to get new evidence technicians.
Well, and that's one of the other problems is too, at this point in our investigation, there's a little bit of apprehension about what else, if anything, that vehicle could be involved in, or what
possibly be involved.
Well, we don't know because we're kind of early in this stage of this investigation, and we're finding out new things.
I realize you don't have to take my word for anything. I've already told you there's nothing else that vehicle is involved in. It was barely involved in what it's being held for now. Mm-hmm. So it's like I say, there is very little evidentiary value to it to begin with, especially considering the mountain of evidence I've already given you. And secondly, it's a car. It's not like even if this case were to go to trial, it would go into the courtroom as evidence. I mean, whatever evidence.
And we're not talking about the that case.
You're
or
concerned that
case
it was
one
used in crimes.
Yeah,
you
we're
don't
talking
know
about just anything that could be new. And so that,
even
but I'm just explaining
if
the
you're
process.
concerned about that, all you have to do is take pictures of it and take tread impressions, and I mean, it's like.
And there's an element of truth to what you're saying, Israel. It definitely is. But keep in mind that we're trying to sell the state prosecutor on this and trying.
Oh, I can imagine. I know there's a lot of people involved, and I know that they're not going to want to do anything I say because they got me where they want me. But that's irrelevant because I already know I'm in jail indefinitely anyway. So if they want me to cooperate, if they want more information, I haven't asked for that much in return. And I think, getting Kimberly's car back to her is pretty minor, considering that she's already been cleared, as far as I know, at least publicly cleared of being at all involved with anything.
And she's been publicly cleared, but ultimately we don't have any assurance from anyone that she's not going to be charged yet. And so that's one of the additional battles that we're fighting too, is we're saying, look, this guy's cooperating with us.
We don't see any reason that
Yeah.
anything like that would happen. But you understand that we have bosses. There's attorneys involved in this. What we're telling you is that what we're telling you is that we don't think it's something that can't be solved, but it's not something that is going to be as quick as what we've already done with the cameras and the cell phone. All right, so we're trying to work with you. We know it's something that you wanted. We're just trying to make sure that our bosses understand we're kind of getting something in return for that, and that and it's going both ways. So that's all we're trying to do is we're cooperating and explaining to them why we're doing it and why we think it's a good idea to do. But those are the things that we're.
Yeah, if they can't see the value in it, then I mean, honestly, I don't see why anyone should have to explain it to them.
Well.
It's kind of, to me, it's common sense. You got another whole case, double homicide that you didn't even know about. So, in return, I asked for her to get her car back that you've already had for 2 months almost, and that seems pretty small to me, especially since I've told you, and you have absolutely no evidence that it was used in any other crime that you don't know about. And I can vouch for that. Kimberly can vouch for that. Whatever. I mean, that car has never left Alaska, so.
And those are good arguments, and those are the arguments we're going to use to try to work that out. But I'm just letting you know that was
I understand. It's going to take some time. I believe you.
And just so you know, where we started out was the answer was no to everything. And we were able to talk to them and point out a lot of these things, not everything that you've mentioned, but a lot of the things you've mentioned we pointed out to the attorneys, primarily the state attorney, but also the other attorneys involved and our bosses, and we ultimately got them to agree that, yeah, you have done a good job of cooperating and kind of holding up your end of the bargain thus far, and so we got them
and
to
you
agree.
continue to do so, and that's the main thing that we're focusing on.
Right, but look, I want to continue. Like I say, if I get the few things that I've asked for, or if I at least feel like they're being worked towards, I have no reason. Like I say, I already know I'm never getting out of prison or whatever, so I have no reason to not tell you more information, stories, or whatever. However, I'm not going to just do it on a whim and just because I'm bored or because I feel like it. I don't. There's no incentive for me to do that.
Understand?
The things I've done, and I didn't do them because I don't feel bad about them, and I didn't do them because I felt I had no other choice. I did them for myself, so it's just as good. It's better actually for me to keep them to myself. Because they're mine, sure. And so unless I'm going to get something in return, aside from just an ego boost by talking about them, then I'm not going to talk about them. I don't have any interest in it. Okay. I've already given the attorneys everything they need, and if they want to know about more stuff, I can give them that too. But they're not going to get it. I'm not going to be. The typical tactics of letting me sweat it out in a cell or threatening me with whatever, the death penalty, whatever, isn't going to work on me because I don't. It doesn't faze me really.
Well, anyhow, we wanted to address that. I just wanted to let you know that we do have the order to release the 2 cameras and the phone, and that we were successful in that, and we're working on the vehicle. But we are going to have to be able to convince them that our relationship and this is going to continue, and so that's where we need to.
Well, that's the only way it can continue.
Okay. And you were also in your last meeting talking about the house, the Courier house, and maybe had some concerns about whether we had the right one and what was the status of that investigation.
Right.
Well, do you have the photo of the house?
I've got.
Pre.
The short version, Israel, is that I know that we have the right house. I don't have the photos from the actual search when I went out and searched the area where the house had been demolished and stuff. The best I can do right now is pull up some photos off of the internet to show you the house that we searched, which I'm very confident is the right one. And I'm going to explain to you why. The short version is, as you know, we don't have the Courier's bodies in hand yet. The house was demolished. We thought that they were probably in the basement when the house was demolished. That didn't wind up being the case. Among other things, we had cadaver dogs out there. They alerted on the same corner of the basement, the southeast corner of the basement that you told us about, so they alerted there. We talked to a number of folks on the demolition crew. I think it was about 3 or 4 folks on the demolition crew, and they all ironically said, yeah, we smelled this horrible odor. It smelled essentially like a dead body or dead animal, that type of thing, depending on who you talk to. And yet none of them, much to our shock and awe, decided it might be a good idea to go in and walk through the house. So apparently they didn't do that. Otherwise, the bodies would have been discovered. They just went ahead with their demolition. I don't know why they did that. Doesn't matter. But they did. We did some additional research on how the house was demolished. It was very similar to what you described in one of the interviews a while back, by the way. And our best guess, frankly, is they were using a huge crane to basically excavate the site and stuff, and it would go in and basically pick up the better part of half a dump truck load of stuff.
In one scoop. So
yeah.
I mean, huge.
And our
bucket.
Our best guess at this point in time is Murphy's Law. They scooped up the bags without basically splitting them open, that type of thing, and put them in the dump truck. We've tracked them down to the dump in Vermont, and we actually have folks there right now today searching it. And we've got it narrowed down to a pretty small area of the dump.
Where all that debris was taken from that house.
And wow! And
they got their work cut out for them.
And I mean, just to again, I mean,
Mr. Courier's glasses were found.
Yeah, and we were able to match those to him, so they were found at the scene. So we do have a connection to the scene and to the Couriers and stuff, and we've been able to corroborate the information that you're giving us on this. It's just not going as quickly or as smoothly as we would all like, and frankly, the way that it usually goes in most cases, it's just not going that well. Every once in a while, there's a hiccup. And that's really what this is. But I printed out some stuff. Again, I'm not asking you to just take my word for it. The reason I don't have the photos is because the same folks that were running point for us on the search of the house were the ones that tracked it back to the dump and then ultimately are there right now today searching. Right. So I didn't want them to delay what they were doing at the dump just to send me a bunch of pictures. So, but what I'm going to show you here is these are photos. This one's at a little bit of a distance. Ironically, it's got a white truck in it, though. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, and we knew it was. I mean, you're good with your directions and everything else. So this is the place that was ultimately demolished and that we searched and did not find the bodies in.
Do you have? Were there any interior pictures, like from the real estate listing agent or something?
That's all we were able to find with that.
Because if they ever, I don't know if they ever want, if they ever want the interview of, like what happened inside the house, that might be. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's probably good enough, just a picture of the outside.
So clearly, I mean, you can see I'm not bullshitting you here. This is the place that we went to and researched. This is also a story I was going to show you just to show that we're continuing to do what we were telling you about, and I'm not BSing you on the search of the dump. We started the search yesterday, and they're continuing today, and it's going to take a little while. It's it's a dump.
And if you read that, you're not going to find any relation to you or Alaska or anything. We've been successful, and the attorneys have been successful in doing just what they explained that they could do by being in control of this. But basically, because of the level of cooperation we have, there's still no connection. We're still able to convince them to keep it quiet.
No, that's good. Alrighty.
So anyway, with that in mind, that's kind of what we're following up on now. I have no doubt that we're going to find the bodies because we've been very successful at narrowing it down to an area of the dump. And it's not tiny, but it's small enough to where we're going to be able to search it successfully. I have no doubt of that. But it's going to take time for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is some of the safety concerns and stuff like that. I mean, you can't just go in there and start throwing stuff around.
You gotta
Imagine.
wear special stuff because of all the
Man.
human waste. And
Yeah, like I said, I really jumped the gun on that one. I had no idea. Oh man, what the hell? But
And so
looking at that house, I knew there was like a 10% chance that the owner was either going to pay to have it demolished or just throw a match in.
it was that ragged, that the house.
Well, I knew. I just knew from what I know about houses. I knew it wasn't something anybody would try to remodel.
Did it have
or
a
refurbish.
for sale sign out in front of it? Was it
Yeah.
for sale actively?
Yeah.
So apparently there wasn't too many people looking at that house to purchase it after you were there
No.
in the months.
Well, this is off of our real estate
yeah.
website. So. That's why I was curious. I'm not surprised though that whoever had it listed didn't take pictures of the inside because it was in pretty bad
Wasn't
shape.
impressive to
No,
put
it
on
wasn't. It actually looks a lot better from the outside.
And so now that the people out there in Vermont are in the dump and they're looking for your black bags, so and I think you told us 4 bags. Are they separate bags, or did you put a bag on the bottom and a bag on the top?
Yeah,
or
that's how it was.
separate bags, or a bag on the top, were they?
2 bags on each body.
Okay.
That's what I thought you'd said. How did you secure them? I mean, did you,
I don't think they were secured.
Just
I may have
covered.
knotted them on top,
Oh.
like knotted the 2 bags together. But
Okay.
the main reason I had for putting the bags on was just so that people wouldn't. They would have to actually pull the
Pull
bag
them
off
off.
to see what it was in it, and also to hold the Drano on the bodies. I had some Drano that I brought with me.
okay.
So when they're looking for these, if there's any, did you dismember them? So
No.
when they're looking, so they're intact. So if we find partial, we need to keep looking to find.
Yeah,
them.
if I'm guessing, it sounds like they brought in a big excavator or something. I'm still surprised.
Sounds like a really big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have had to have been a really big one because like I say, the bags weren't tied together, so it seems like it would have been, the bodies would have, although it's been less than a year, so the bodies probably weren't even, they were probably only about halfway to skeletal, so
Do
they're
you
probably.
think even with all the moisture the bags will trap and stuff?
Well, it depends how busy the bugs got, but
And what you put the Drano in there? Is that what you said? Drano?
yeah.
What's that for?
The Drano was an idea I had in case they were found right away. I didn't want there to be any DNA on the outside of the bodies.
Oh, does that?
I had heard that the lye in the Drano destroys, like scrambles up all the DNA. I don't know. And also, I was thinking to keep it like. If you leave it on, if you leave the Drano I was using, I had used it before, and I noticed that it got splashed on me, and it'll actually burn through your skin if you leave it on there long enough. And so that was the other thought I had, that it would start the decomposition, and they would, it'd break them down a little bit faster,
Mm-hmm.
keep them from bloating and stuff.
And you didn't tape the bag shut at all, or do anything?
No, I know they weren't taped. They're possibly knotted.
Would they be knotted with a zip tie, or did
No.
you just knot them?
Just they may have been. Seems like the bags might have been the kind with the flaps, like extended portions of the bag on the top of the mouth of the bag
That you
can
used to tie
together. So what I may have done is pulled them together at the waist, at the torso, and then just done a knot on top. But I don't think I did. It was dark and I was in a hurry at that point, so it's more likely
How early in the morning? How close was it to getting daylight?
It was daylight. It was.
was it?
It was probably about 6 in the morning when I had everything wrapped up. Probably.
And then you said you left in their car and you drove around a while to find a place to go directly to the parking lot and dump the car, or did you do some driving around?
No, I drove directly to the Lowe's parking lot, or maybe it was Home Depot. I forget the store. Lowe's or Home Depot, right there across from where my hotel was. I left the car in that parking lot and walked back to the hotel.
Oh, so you didn't actually take the car right then and there to...
No, and then I went back to the hotel room and I was waiting for. I was thinking about getting some sleep, but by then it was pretty late in the morning, and I wanted to get up. I wanted to get to the banks up north by like the time they opened. It would have been like probably 9 or 10. So I was just getting everything packed up in the motel room. I think I was planning to check out that morning, and so I got everything packed up and kind of sorted through some of the stuff I had taken from their house, and I think I used the dumpster at the motel to throw all the clothes and whatever else I had used at the house into the dumpster. And then I went and drove the car I had rented to another parking lot. It was across the street from the Home Depot, and then went and got in their car and drove up north to where the banks were.
Where at up north?
It's up Route 15 there. I think the furthest bank that I was looking at was up in a town called Johnson or Johnsonville or something. And then there were 2 or 3 more banks on the way back down that I was planning on. But I got about halfway up to Johnsonville or whatever it was called, and I started noticing some things about the car that made me nervous, and so I just
Like it wouldn't make it?
Yeah, well, I just Murphy's Law. I didn't want to tempt it, and so I just kind of scratched that idea and drove.
But your plan was to use their car to at least...
Yeah, well, yeah, I was figuring it might be. It would have been. I was gonna do them really quick, and because I wanted to do like 2 or 3 of the small ones, these small banks that hardly ever have any customers in them, and so I already had all the guns with me. The guns were all set up and ready to go, and then I had their car, and so I knew I could leave my car would never even be seen up there. So I think I already had a disguise with me and stuff too. But yeah, the car made me nervous because I remember it had a clutch that slipped, and then there was like 2 cans of antifreeze or coolant or something in the back seat. And I remember asking them, I was like, "What the heck are these for?" And they're like, "Oh, the car overheats." I was like, "Oh crap." So I knew the car had problems, but I didn't know how serious they were till the next morning, and I got to see the car like in the daylight. I was like, "Oh my god, this thing's a piece of junk." So,
What kind of car was it?
it was a Saturn. I think it was a sedan. Yeah, it had a trunk. I think it was a blue Saturn, blue or green.
Any
Older one. It was like, I think it had like 100 and something zillion miles on it, and probably like mid-90s or something.
You said you had your disguise with you. What was your disguise going to be?
I don't remember.
You change that up?
Well, yeah. It's not a disguise if you don't change your disguise.
Yeah,
It's a costume.
good point.
Was your disguise going to be that trip?
No, I think it was the same one. I think it was pretty much the same idea I had that I used in Texas.
The dust mask.
The dust mask and the helmet. Except slight variation. I think I had also had a nylon stocking or something, like a hairnet that I was going to put my hair up under the helmet so people thought I had short hair.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Texas I had short hair and I taped hair on the inside of the helmet so people thought I had long hair. Other than that, I think it was pretty much the same idea. I think maybe I had a safety vest on that one though.
The one in Texas? Or the
No, when I was
there?
the one I was set up to do in Vermont.
Right.
I don't know.
Not too far off the construction worker look. That's what you.
Yeah, I was pretty like after the Courier thing. That was pretty intense, and just because of like how carried away it got, and so I between that and the car, I just decided not to do the bank robbery. I was afraid I was gonna freak out and get trigger happy or something. So
Like you wouldn't be able to keep control, huh?
Yeah, I just was worried.
Mm-hmm.
Which guns did you have with you when you were going up to look at the banks?
I had Well, when I went to look at the banks, I had just the two that I was going to rob the bank with because I was in their car. I didn't really have much of my stuff in their car.
Mm-hmm.
I had there was their suitcase in the trunk of their car, and it had a bunch of other stuff. It had like some lingerie I took from her house and or from her room, and jewelry. It had like miscellaneous stuff. I think maybe the gun that I took. All that stuff was in the trunk of their car in a suitcase. I think I had thrown in a couple of their suitcases.
The gun. You mean you're talking about the gun you threw in the
gun I took from their house.
and threw that in the reservoir as well?
Yeah, I ended up.
That was the 38, right?
Yeah.
Where do you buy hair? Where do you get hair to put on on your helmet? Like costume hair or real hair?
No, it was actually real hair.
Oh. Okay.
The 38, you may have mentioned this before and I'm just blanking on it, but do you remember, was it nickel or blued?
It was an airweight. I think it was a Smith & Wesson, but it was blue.
Yeah, so it was a blue.
Yeah,
finish.
like the barrel, but I think the rest was aluminum, like black painted aluminum or something.
All right, that makes sense. Going back to the Couriers, did you leave the bottles in the bags, the Drano bottles in the bags?
No, I think I took all that stuff with me.
Okay. And I think you told us previously they didn't have a whole lot of clothing on them. Is that accurate?
No, I think he might have had shorts on.
Okay.
Like either boxers or like swimming trunks. They weren't like normal going out to town type of shorts.
Do you remember like what color or style or anything like that?
I think they were black, but I could be wrong.
And I might have missed it. Did you say boxers or briefs or?
I think they were. If I remember correctly, they were like swimming trunks, like with the zippered pockets and the like quick dry type material. But they could have just been. They were just some lightweight shorts. They weren't. Yeah, I think they just had like a drawstring. They weren't like the type you would put a belt on or something like that. They were because I think he was. Yeah, they were the ones he was sleeping in.
Okay.
And
he was sleeping in them when you came in the house?
yeah, Yeah, because he was wanting to put on some other clothes, and yeah, that wasn't happening. So.
Nice try, huh?
Yeah. What about her? What kind of clothing did she have on?
She didn't have on any clothes.
Okay.
Not after she was dead.
Okay.
So one of the other things too, I'm kind of curious. You seem pretty good at getting in the house and that kind of stuff. Were you ever worried about them making a phone call or calling the police while, like, hearing you when you were in or anything like that? I mean, if they were late sleepers, could they have heard you get in and call the police or?
Oh, well, I think I already told this part of the story, but after I found that house and decided that it was probably just a couple, I think I even had it pegged down just from looking at the outside that it was probably an older couple, just because of the way they had their backyard set up. They had like a swimming pool and a deck and a barbecue, and it just looked like a, like older couple that didn't have kids kind of house.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew there was probably only one room in the house that was being used as the bedroom, and so I walked around the house, and then I was pretty sure I'd found it just from walking around the house.
Oh, the room they were in?
Yeah, because I heard, even though the blinds were closed, I heard fans running in it, and it was hot that night. It was really hot and muggy, and it had been raining, and so I already knew, like in my head, before I even went into the garage, I already had in my head about what the layout of the house was. It was just a ranch house, so it wasn't hard to figure out. And yeah, but I mean, I knew that they, you always think of that, and they did. They had a gun right there in the nightstand, but just
Which gun was in the nightstand?
the one I took.
You had it sitting right on top of the nightstand?
It was in a drawer in the
okay.
nightstand, but it wasn't loaded. It wouldn't have done them much good. No, there was no. It wouldn't have mattered. They couldn't. Because once I was actually in the house, I was probably in the bedroom within 5 or 6 seconds from the time the glass broke. So
Where did you break the glass at?
the door, the kitchen door between the garage and the kitchen.
Were they still asleep when you got to there, or do you think they heard that?
They heard it, but they were just barely. I mean, they
Or
were
just wondering what it was?
waking up. Yeah.
So you don't do anything or to prevent them from calling or anything like that, or using the phone or anything like that?
Well, I cut the phone lines outside the house.
Oh, okay. All right.
I cut the phone lines as soon as I picked the house because usually if there's an alarm system, it'll trigger the alarm, and
Oh, I see. So you could watch and see. If
right. So I
So
cut
quite
the
a while
phone
ago.
lines, and like I said, the neighbor next door, he was still up. He kept coming out and smoking, so I knew I wasn't gonna break in until. Or no, I broke into the garage, but I knew I wasn't going to break into the house until I was sure that the neighbors were asleep. So I was in the garage, and I unlocked the back door of the garage so I could come and go. And then I found the phone box on the side of the house, and I had my side cutters with me, and I cut the main wire of the phone box, and figured if they had any kind of alarm or something, the police would do a drive-by or something. Mm-hmm. And so after I cut that, I was outside for probably an hour or two, just kind of hanging out mostly in the backyard behind the swimming pool, waiting for everybody in the neighborhood to go to sleep, and also watching the street for cops or cars driving by, but there was never anything.
So what happened after you entered the house? I know you said you went right back to the bedroom, took 5-6 seconds. What happened then?
Oh, I told them right away what was going on.
Were they cooperative at first, at least, both of them?
Yeah. Pretty shocked.
I'm sure.
People never expected stuff to happen to them.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what you told them?
I just, it's like a blitz attack. You just make sure they know right away who's in charge and immediately tie him up, tell him what the rules are, that there's no talking unless I talk to him. They don't move unless I tell them to move, and did their hands behind their back and had them, pulled everything off the bed and got their hands and their feet together with cable ties and then just started talking, like asking them one question after the other, and then I would ask them like the same questions over to see, like if they were
Lying.
Yeah, I remember the first thing I asked them was if they had an alarm or if they had a safe. And I was pretty sure they hadn't lied about that stuff, but then I asked them again a few minutes later, and then I'd ask them like where the guns are, where the jewelry is, where the cash is, where the cell phones are, where their ATM cards are.
So they you don't have to tell them, but they know they're being robbed. That's what they think is happening. They're being robbed.
Well, they kept trying to ask me. I didn't tell them what was happening. They kept trying to ask me what was going on, and I never answered them. Really, it's just have to keep telling them to shut up and listen to me. And eventually, they're just quiet, and then I kind of, when I was going through the house, checking out the house and checking where everything was and getting everything loaded into suitcases and stuff, I keep peeking back in the bedroom. I had my headlamp on, but I would look back in the bedroom every once in a while to make sure that they weren't trying anything. And it seems like at one time she started trying to roll over or something, and I think I grabbed her by the neck, just to. Yeah, that's what it was, because they weren't taking me they weren't taking the situation seriously enough, I guess, and that was a problem throughout the night that I was having. So, which it surprised me.
That they didn't take you seriously?
Yeah, that they didn't take me seriously.
Why do you think that was?
Well, I don't know. 20/20 hindsight's probably because they didn't even know that I had a gun. I told them I had a gun, but they never saw me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like anytime I was in the room, there were never any lights on, and so.
Just your headlamp.
Right. So I mean, if you look at someone with a headlamp on, you can't tell what they have in their hands. And,
sure.
Plus, I think they were just kind of in awe that it was happening. Like, they couldn't believe it, and they kept, wanting an explanation as to why it was happening. So yeah, But yeah, she tried. It seemed like she tried to roll over. She was talking to him. She was like I could tell they were trying to make a plan and figure out what to do. And I jumped up over on the bed and grabbed her by the neck and shoved her head down into the pillow and just told her I was, even when they didn't think I was watching, I might be watching, and no matter what they tried to do or what they said, it was only going to piss me off. It wasn't going to change anything for them. So after that, they stayed quiet for quite a while and didn't do anything. And then the next time I started having trouble with them was when I got them in the car.
How long were you at the house there, you think? How long were they bound at the house?
I doubt I was in the house for more than 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember about when you went into the house?
No, I don't. I don't. Funny you should ask that, because I kept wondering what time it was, and nobody has clocks anymore. Everybody's got cell phones, and I didn't have my cell phone with me, so I didn't know what time it was. I knew it was getting late, but I didn't know how much time I had. And I remember
when we got to the house, the one there on Route 15, I remember, you know, like once everything got going, I was like, man, I wonder how much time I have. And then I remember even though I'm sure we were there for a few hours, it was, you know, it seemed like really quick. All of a sudden it was getting light outside, and I was like, what the heck? So yeah, I kind of lost track of time there.
So you drove straight from their house to the house that you'd already picked out, or did you have to find that?
No, we drove straight there. I already knew where it was.
You said that you were kind of gathering stuff up, putting it in suitcases and stuff at the house. What kinds of things were you gathering up?
I grabbed a bunch of her lingerie and went through a lot of their dressers, drawers and stuff, just to kind of try and figure out stuff about them, and grabbed like everything. All their financial stuff was in her wallet, and I think I grabbed her purse and emptied out all their jewelry. Their wedding rings were sitting on the coffee table, and I think I just threw all the jewelry. I didn't really look at the jewelry when I was in the house, but then when I looked at the jewelry later at the motel, like most of it was so bad, I just tossed it. I just threw it out with the rest of the stuff. I think there were a few things I held on to, but
Where did you throw the stuff out at?
almost everything went into that dumpster, the motel I stayed at. I forget what I'm sure you guys have that.
I think you told us time before, that there was some stuff in the suitcase and you burned it.
Yeah.
In the campground. I want to say you said it was in New Jersey, New Hampshire. Does that
Yeah.
sound right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of the campground or where
No.
it was at, anything like that?
I could probably find it on a map, but it would probably take a while.
And you burned it in a campsite there, yeah.
It wasn't even in a campsite. It was out in the boondocks in the woods. So,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, you could find it, but I didn't stick around for the fire. I just lit it on fire and walked away. And
You use an accelerant?
yeah, I used diesel.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was soaking wet. It had been raining nonstop, and so I remember I went into the woods. It was like in a national park, national forest area, and built a pretty big pile of wet wood and stuff because I knew the stuff wasn't going to burn very well, and just lit it with the diesel. I only stuck around long enough to make sure that it actually caught on fire, and then I took off.
How much diesel did you put on it?
I think I had about like a half-gallon bottle. Well, no, I had more than that. I had about a gallon of diesel because I saved half of it. I was going to drive by where I left the car and just torch it that night if the cops hadn't found it, but it was already gone. So I think I used the diesel in New York. I didn't end up using it in the car, obviously.
What did you use it in New York for?
I don't remember. Just like starting campfires or something.
So you drove them, you were only in their house about 15 minutes, drove straight to the house out there in the country, and we know that from our past conversations that you had him downstairs.
Yeah.
What, he wasn't bound or anything? You just
Yeah, he
come
was.
Oh, he wasn't? I thought you had some struggles with him.
Yeah.
Did he get himself unbound?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then you had her on a different level of the house.
Yeah.
Upstairs.
How did you have him bound? I know you said zip ties, but where were his hands? Were they in front or behind? Or
They were behind.
I think you said that getting them in the vehicle was interesting or difficult. There was some difficulty.
Yeah, that's when they started. That was the first time they got a look at me, and because the dome light came on, I guess, and they were both checking me out, like trying to figure out what was going on. Yeah, and so they were. So then after they saw my, I had a mask on, but I had a mask and the hood of my jacket on, but they would they started trying to talk to me and stuff, and
Try to personalize it.
yeah. And I would go along with it a little bit because it seemed like it was like the guy he used to be in the same unit in the Army that I was in. He was 25th Infantry Division or something.
No kidding.
Yeah, I found one of his insignia patches when I was going through their dresser, and I was asking him about it. Anyway, yeah, I was just bullshitting them, and they were, they of course wanted to know why we were leaving in the car.
What'd you tell him?
No, I just told them it was a kidnap for ransom setup, and that there were other people involved in it. So,
Did you take the laundry, clothing, and stuff to make it look like maybe they had gone on a trip? Is that part of the reason?
well, I was thinking that might. I wasn't really thinking. That was part of my thinking, but I wasn't doing it for that reason really, because I knew that with the broken window and the cut phone lines, the police would know that it was pretty unlikely that someone would do that, make it look like they got kidnapped and disappear. So the main reason I took the suitcases was because I only had a small backpack with me, and I wanted to keep all of their stuff separate from my stuff. I had a lot of stuff in the backpack that I had with me. And so everything I took from their house I wanted to keep separate so I could go through it later. And
What kind of stuff do you have in your backpack?
I don't know if I want to go into all that today.
All right, this is your call.
Would a cigar help?
Kimberly's car getting back would help.
Well, we're working on that. I mean, we're halfway there, considering that we got.
No, that's great. We're making progress. I know. It's a long time to go without your car, though. If you think about it,
I understand that.
I was just feeling bad for her. I was like, man, this is gonna. Like, it's easy for me because I just sit in a cell, but like 2 months to not have your car, that sucks.
It does, and
especially in a town like Anchorage.
we're making that point to folks, and I think that plus the other stuff helped. But they kept, they're coming back with on other things. Hey, we got to know that the cooperation's continuing, and blah blah blah. So
yeah,
that's kind of what we're hoping we can continue to show them here today.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, yeah, it's kind of funny. They still don't really have any evidence, though.
Well, we got the guns.
You got the guns and you got
the glasses.
But you don't have anything tying the two together until you find the bodies. Well, except for my word.
Yeah. I mean,
and you happen to know where that stuff was.
Yeah. I know. I'm just a lucky guy. Maybe I find stuff everywhere.
Well, and a lot of details about the condition of the house, all those kinds of things. So it's you're providing.
I think I scared Feldus last time when I started saying that.
Why do you think that?
I was just messing with him, but it was funny.
Yeah.
I told him I wanted to see pictures of the bodies, and he's like, "Why do you want to see that?" I was like, "So I know that you actually found them. Otherwise, I could always just say I was telling you a big story." Oh well. He doesn't like to be messed with.
Yeah,
I didn't think it was funny.
He's a pretty good guy, though.
I'm sure he's just somewhat overwhelmed.
Yeah, he's a busy guy, too. I mean, he's got a lot going on.
Well, everybody's working hard. Everybody's got bosses. The other jurisdictions are getting a little restless.
That was a concern I had.
And that's why we're just trying to get as much information as we can, and assure the other jurisdictions that we're getting that, like Vermont, and
right.
So that's kind of why.
Well, that's what I don't want to happen, is for them to feel like I'm withholding information and then have them start up their own investigation and go public with that.
And we're pushing back really hard on that. That's one of the reasons we're trying to get some more information on that, so that we can assure them that we do have two-way communication, and that you are talking to us, and there's no reason for them to do that kind of stuff. But as time goes by, and we're not giving them, we're not telling them that we're working on it. We're working on it. That's kind of what we're up against. So
yeah. All right. Well, if I can have a bathroom break and a cigar break,
sure.
I'll just go ahead and tell you, whatever.
Do the rest of the story.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. We'll do that.
And then beyond that, like I say, anything prior to the couriers we can talk about, but probably not till find out what happens with this stuff.
No, that's fair.
I'm going to pause.
Yeah, I'm going to pause this one too. Put that thing back on here.
And we just come back after a smoke break, bathroom break. And I think, I just want to let you know, I do think this is going to help us chill Vermont and keep them on board with
All right.
the Maine plan.
Well, I'm counting on it.
Yep. So we pretty much went through, I think what happened at the house.
Right.
And then getting the car, and then to the house on Route 15.
Yeah, there was one thing. They probably won't find anything on it, but there was a crowbar that was hanging in their garage. That's what I used to break the window on the door to the kitchen. It was like a 24-inch crowbar, and it was hanging on a pegboard at the back of the garage. And after I broke the window, I think I just dropped it on the floor. And then when we were leaving, I picked up the crowbar and hung it back on the pegboard once I had them in the car. And I had her in the front seat, and her hands were behind her back. I had cable ties on them, and I think I had cable ties on her feet too. And once I had him in there, and he was kind of overweight, and he wasn't in very good health, so I wasn't that worried about him. But I had his hands cable tied, and then I had a seatbelt on him too. And
Was he in the back?
Yeah, he was in the back on the passenger side. And like I say, they were wondering what was going on. So I don't know. I guess I just told them a story that I thought was somewhat believable, so they wouldn't freak out on the way out there. Told them I was taking them to a drop house, and there were other people that were going to meet us there, and they were convinced that I had the wrong people, and that they didn't. I think they thought it was a case of mistaken identity or something. They thought that they were, because I was asking them about drugs too when I was in the house, and took all their prescription. There was like some Percocets and Vicodin and stuff like that, but there weren't any illegal drugs that I found. And so I had all that stuff in the suitcase. So I think they thought it was related to something to that. And so we were driving out to the house, and she started talking about, I should start screaming, or I should start doing something. And I told her, I said, you're just going to piss me off because there's nobody around to help you. It was probably about 1 or 2 a.m. at that time. And
That's about when you left the house, you think? 1 or 2 a.m.?
Yeah, I think so. I remember I looked at the clock in the kitchen, but I don't remember what time it said. It was late, because I know that guy was out, the neighbor was out smoking and stuff until about midnight or maybe a little later. And And then I already had my backpack with me. It had a bunch of stuff in it. I had like a propane burner, camp stove thing, and a pan for boiling water, and had a few like water bottles, Perrier bottles that had water in them, and had a coil, like a 50-foot coil of nylon rope, duct tape, latex gloves, I guess you'd call it a rape kit. That's what it mostly was. And so I had all that stuff in the bag with me, and after I had them in the car, I drove to the hotel where my car was parked. My car was parked off to the side, kind of in a dark area of the parking lot, and I backed their car in right alongside my car. And I hadn't decided for sure at that point what to do with their bodies, so I threw a bunch of stuff out of my car into their car trunk. I had a shovel, had some diesel, I had a big roll of the 55-gallon trash bags, and the Drano, I threw that in their trunk. And I just remembered I had a stash of that. This is kind of unrelated, but made me think of it. There's a shovel and 2 gallons of Drano up on the road in Eagle River. That's the place I had staked out before I went back east. That was right after I had finished the gun. And there were a couple days when Kimberly was out of town and Lainey was staying with her aunt. I was out looking for trouble. I had that place up there staked out actually 2 or 3 nights. And then I had a park, a couple of parks here in town that I could ride my bike to. I had those staked out. And yeah, but there's still a couple gallons of Drano and a shovel stashed up there on
like Highland Road?
No, I don't know if it's Highland Road. It's the one that goes up to the North Fork Eagle River. You take the road that goes right by the Walmart there, and you just keep
Eagle
following
River
that
Road,
up. Yeah. You drive up that, and then off to the right, there's a gated parking area. There's like some restrooms. There's like an outhouse down there, and I had that place set up for a while. I had a bag stashed in the bushes there with all my stuff in it, and a cutoff tool, battery-powered cutoff tool, and a padlock. And the plan there was I had that parking lot staked out, waiting for somebody after, like fairly late. I was gonna take them and use the cutoff tool to lock the gate, and then do my thing there in the parking lot. And then I had the Drano and the shovel stocked up there as a way to get rid of the body if I needed it. So,
But that never happened.
no,
And we're talking about like May of 2011.
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I threw all that stuff in their trunk and went out started driving out to the house. It was really late. There wasn't anybody on the roads or anything, and got out to the house, parked back behind the house there, and she was in the front seat, and I thought I had her pretty secure. Like I say, at that point I thought I wasn't really that worried about it. I think I even had the seatbelt cable tied together so that she couldn't just pop the buckle and get out. My plan was to take him into the basement tie him up separate and then take her upstairs. There were these 2 queen-size mattresses in the upstairs corner bedroom. And that's where I planned to take her, and then him I was going to leave downstairs for a while. But anyway, I took him down through the outside basement access. There were those 2 big steel doors into the basement, and I walked him down there, found there was like an old stool, and cable tied his hands down to the stool so he couldn't stand up, and then like had the stool backed up against the wall, and thought I had it pretty well secured. And well, I mean, it must have taken me longer than I thought, because I came out of the basement and she was standing right there by the door. She had got out of the car, or she was in the process of like, she just had thongs on her feet, and she had somehow broke the cable ties on her hands and on her feet and got out of the car. She was almost to the road when I came out of the basement, and she saw me come out and she started running, and I tackled her on the lawn and and roughed her up a little bit and tied her back up and took her upstairs and had her lay down on I had the mattresses. I think I had already had them set up from the day before when I had the house. I had them thrown down in the middle of the room upstairs. Had her lie down on the mattresses. I gave up on the cable ties. I don't know, it must have been a bad batch or something. They kept breaking, and so I didn't trust them anymore. So I took duct tape and made handcuffs out of that, and with her hands behind her back. And then once I had her laying down on the bed, I took the nylon rope and ran it under between the mattresses, under the one she was on and on top of the other one, and then did a trucker's hitch and cinched her down to the mattress, and then cut off the rope that was left over. She was feisty. She was like fighting the whole time, and so I just kept tightening the rope on the bed. I had it set up so that it was just like a loop. You could pull the loop and then tighten the hitch, and I just kept tightening it. And I finally told her, like, if you keep struggling, I'm just going to keep tightening it until you pass out, because I think I had it around her neck. And after that, she stopped. And I had in my bag, I had some cuffs that I had made out of nylon, 1-inch nylon webbing, and I put those on her feet and on her ankles, and they had a loop on them. And I took the rope. There was the door of the bedroom was taken off the hinges. The hinge was still there on the door frame, and it had a pin in it. And I took one section of rope, tied it to her left foot and to the cuff on her left foot, and ran it around the pin on that hinge, and did another trucker's hitch. And then there was nothing to tie the other one to on the other side of the room. So I ran downstairs, and there was like a tool room off the back of the house, and found a section of pipe about 20 inches long, and found some big nails, like 4-inch 20-penny nails, and took that upstairs. And she was already struggling again, trying to get off the bed, but she hadn't actually got off yet. And I took the nail and drove it into the window facing the side of the window facing the road there, and did another trucker's hitch on that side, and just kept tightening both of them till her legs were like spread eagle, and she couldn't move at all, really. And then I heard some movement downstairs, because at that point she had finally shut up a little bit, and I heard something downstairs, and that's when I started having problems with the guy. I went down there, and he had the stool. He was kind of a big guy, like overweight, and the stool had just collapsed. And I guess when it collapsed, the cable ties that I had on his wrist behind his back, they had broke, and the stool like came apart, and I don't know, just messed my whole plan up. So I was kind of pissed off about that, and I was like yelling at him, like, why are you trying to get away? You're just making it worse. And at that point he was still like trying to talk me out of it. He's like, just let us go. I know you're in too deep, but we haven't really seen you. You can still walk away. And I just kind of laughed at him. I was like, I don't know if I actually said anything, but in my head I was like, you don't even know how much planning I've put into this, and just walk away. And but he wouldn't. I mean, at that point, like I say, he had just reached a point where he wasn't going to cooperate no matter what. And I didn't have the Ruger 1022 on me. I had it. It was upstairs in the backpack. I had my 40 cal, and I had a knife, and I didn't want to use the knife on him because I'm like, I'm going to make a big mess. And so I think I just kind of grabbed him by the neck and pushed him up against one of the posts and put the knife to him, and he still, like, he had his hands out, but he still wasn't doing what I said. And then I started getting pissed, and I just told him, I was like, I have a gun upstairs, and you know, if you want to do this the hard way or do it the easy way, it's up to you. He didn't really believe me or take me seriously or whatever, so there was a shovel in the basement, and I hit him with that a couple times, and he was still trying to wrestle with me and stuff, and I just came to the realization that, you know, he wasn't going to stop fighting, and so I knew I was either going to have to knock him out or just kill him. But by then I already had her all set up upstairs, and it was, you know, it's like, it was annoying me that I was having to deal with him, and that was part of the whole plan for taking a couple. You know, I had this idea in my head of what was going to happen, and she was screwing it up, I guess. So so once I realized he wasn't going to let me tie him back up again, I just kind of gave up on that part of the plan. I was like, oh, I'm just going to kill him, I guess. And the plan was to have him, I was going to rape her, and, you know, and like, I'm not going to say what I was going to do, but, you know, there was like a plan I had that he was going to be involved too, and but once he wasn't tied up anymore, I just felt like it was kind of a waste of time, and so I went back upstairs. I like ran back upstairs, and by then I was all amped up, and grabbed the 1022 out of the backpack. I didn't want to shoot him with the 40 cal because there was a cop car right across the road. I don't know if it was the sheriff's house or if his car was just there.
Parked in the driveway or something?
Yeah, it was like there was a house probably only 100 yards away, and the 40 cal was loud, and I was paranoid about using it, so I ran back upstairs and grabbed the 1022, and I had usually when I was carrying those, I always had like the 50-round drum with me, or, you know, all the other magazines, but when I was carrying it, I would just carry it with the 10-round magazine because it would fit up under my jacket better. And so I grabbed that, and I grabbed the silencer and put that on, and I was upstairs for maybe not very long, like 20 or 30 seconds, and she was still on the bed. She couldn't move anywhere at that time, but she could tell that things were not going well. I think I was cursing and stuff, and so it's like he kept yelling up after me up the stairs. He was like, "Where's my wife? What's going on?" And I was like, I told you you're not going to cooperate. You're going to do it the hard way. And came back downstairs, and he was standing at the bottom of the stairs in the basement still. It was like he didn't have any light, but I could tell when I came down the stairs, like he was trying to figure out like some way to fight me. He was like feeling around for something to hit me with, and I came back down the stairs, and I saw that, and I said, "Oh, you're still not going to cooperate." And I had the gun out in front of me, like pointed from the hip, and had my headlamp on. And he saw the gun, and he started to say something, and it just pissed me off, and I just started pulling the trigger. And he threw his arms up, kind of crossed them in front of him, it seems like, and I actually saw, like in my headlamp, I actually saw the bullets hitting him. But it wasn't loud. It was, you couldn't even really, I mean, if someone heard that gun, even if they were in the next room, they probably wouldn't even know it was a gun. It was that quiet.
How many times was it?
I just kept pulling the trigger. I pulled as fast as I could until the magazine was empty.
So 10?
Yeah. And yeah, he didn't. He was still standing when the last shot hit him.
Where did the shots hit him mostly?
Seems like two of them might have hit him in the forehead, or not forehead, but in the forearms. They're like his arms were crossed in front of him, and then seems like at least one or two rounds, like the last rounds that hit him, he was starting to fall. It seems like they might have hit him in the neck or in the head, but for the most part, I think it was like the chest area, torso, and I was surprised like how fast he went down us, because I wasn't. I mean, it's just a 22, but I think he was in shock. It was like, I think he went into shock because I don't think he was dead. But he, yeah, he hit the ground, and I knew he wasn't getting back up again. He was bleeding quite a bit. I don't think very many of the rounds, I don't, if any of them went through. I think it was subsonic rounds I was using, so they weren't. I don't think they went all the way through. If they find the body, they're probably going to find 6 or 8 slugs in it still.
Do you remember what type of rounds they were? Were they bonded rounds?
No, the subsonic. They're probably going to be one of 2 types. I had 2 types that I had with me. I had the subsonic rounds, which are just a lead bullet, and they weren't actually labeled subsonic. I think they were like a target round that I had got at a store up here, and they were a lot more accurate than the subsonic rounds that I had tried. So those are the ones I had with me. And so it was either those, or it would have been like the CCI Mini Mag, which is like a copper-coated, either a hollow point or a, I forget which ones I found worked better. It was either a hollow point or a solid bullet. So that it'll be one of those 2. But I was pissed off after I had to shoot him, because I knew I was really proud of that gun. I was like, now I have to throw the barrel away. So I was pissed off about that. But anyway, yeah. So after he went down, I checked him out for a couple minutes. Just kind of watched him, and he had his eyes closed, so I don't think he was dead. But I waited long enough to make sure that he wasn't going to get back up or go anywhere, and then I went back upstairs and took the gun apart. And I don't think she knew that, or I didn't take it apart, I just took the silencer off, but and put it back in my backpack. I don't think she knew that I had shot him, but she knew that something had happened. And after that, at first she didn't, try anything much, but then once she realized that I was going to rape her, then she started started fighting again and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna go into details of that part, but I had all the ropes and had a bunch of stuff with me. Like I had stuff that I had been thinking about for a while that I was gonna do, and I did it. And had her tied up a couple different ways, and
She face down or face up?
she was face down at first, and or no, face up at first, and had her hands behind her back, and that was, the ropes were a big part of it, I guess. Like
Big part of what?
just like, I don't know, I guess you could call it like the fantasy that developed over the years. It seems like I got more into the tying up part, and I'm not sure why really. But yeah, that was a big. That was a good one. I had everything on that one. I had that rope, and then I had the. It's weird because even though I knew I was gonna kill her, I had all that stuff. It's more like set up like bondage gear, I guess you would call it. Because I didn't want to just tie the ropes around. It sounds weird, but I didn't want to just tie the ropes around her ankles, because it like cuts off circulation and it's really uncomfortable. And so that's why I had the cuff things made. But looking back, that's ridiculous, because I already knew I was going to kill her, and obviously, I was raping her anyway, so obviously I didn't have her comfort in mind really, but it was just part of the fantasy thing, I guess. I just had it in my mind that was the way I was going to do it. And it was funny, there was a big hole in the bedroom floor. I don't know if it was from an old stovepipe or what, but I had my bag sitting by the bed, and stuff kept falling through that hole in the floor, like my stove, my little propane burner thing, it fell down through the hole, and thought the house was going to burn down for a minute. Yeah, so I don't know. I raped her, and she was face up like that on the mattress, and then I went outside for a while, and then I went upstairs and tied her up in a different way and raped her again. And then by then it was starting to get light, and there were starting to be like commuters driving on the road, and I knew that she could hear cars and stuff going by. I just didn't want her to try and get away again when there were actually people around. She came really close to getting away and all that. She was almost to the road when I found she got out of the car. I couldn't believe that. After that, I almost wasn't going to use cable ties again because I didn't trust them. She was like, I think she was 50 something, and she was a lot stronger than she looked. I don't think I've ever broke one of those cable ties. But yeah, after that, I think when I raped her the second time, I was worried about her screaming, so I made a gag, took a bunch of paper towels and some duct tape, put them in her mouth, and wrapped duct tape around her mouth, and Yeah, after that, she wasn't fighting anymore. I think she knew what was going to happen. And put all my remember everything that had touched her. I wore condoms when I raped her, but anything that had touched her, like the cuffs and everything else, I didn't want to throw them away, but I just decided I better, so I threw all that stuff. I had one of those big bags, and after I had her tied up, I had cut off all of her clothes with that knife. And actually, I think it was the same knife that I had on me when they arrested me in Texas. And I put all her, everything that had been on her, I put in that bag, and then grabbed the bag, walked her down the stairs all the way to the basement, and she was sitting on a bench down there. And I had already, she was kind of out of it by then. She was, when second time I raped her, I had choked her. I think she passed out for a little while, and then, so she was, like by the time I walked her downstairs, she was a little bit out of it. I don't know if she really knew what was going on at that point. And I had my leather gloves on, and I think I took a piece of the rope and stood behind her while she was sitting on that bench, and used it like a garrote and strangled her. And I knew that she was gone. Like she lost control over her bladder and stuff, and so I was pretty sure that she was gone. But then I wanted to be sure she wasn't gonna wake back up or start breathing again. So I took a cable tie and put it around her neck, tightened it down as much as I could, and then left her on the floor and went outside for a little bit longer. And I think I went out and got the Drano out of the trunk of the car and the garbage bags, and took that stuff down to the basement. And by then I'm pretty sure the guy was dead, but when I moved him, I think it was just air coming out of the lungs, but there was like a groan or a sound or something. So I was thinking that, at first I was thinking, wow, how can he still be alive? But then I realized that just because he made a noise, it didn't mean he was alive. I don't think he was alive. And yeah, he was heavy. He was probably over 200 pounds. And he was kind of in the middle of the basement. There was a lot of blood on the floor. And I think I grabbed him by the legs and pulled him back. I think he was wearing sandals too. I think I took his sandals off and threw them in the garbage bag I had down there. And dragged him back to the corner of the basement, and then bagged him up And then she was quite a bit easier to move. She was over by the stairway to the downstairs, but I just dragged her over and bagged her up. They were right like side by side when I left them there. And after I had the bags on them, I pulled the bags back and dumped a gallon of that Drano on each of the bodies, mostly on like the hands and the chest and face areas, because he had been, I'm not sure, the Drano was like overkill, but I was thinking I was gonna stop and check on him on my way back through, but I guess it was daylight when I drove back through that area, and I didn't want to stop at the house and didn't want anybody to see me at the house in case they found the bodies or something. But I guess I was curious to see what the Drano was going to do, so that's what I was thinking. I dumped it on him and then bagged him, like pulled the bags back over him. And but before I had her, before I did that, I took everything off of her. I had my side cutters and I cut the cable ties and handcuffs and duct tape and all that stuff off of her. And so I think the only thing that, I guess he still had his shorts on, but that was it. And bagged everything up and thought about trying to round up all the shell casings that were all over the basement, but then it was too big of a mess, so I just gave up on that and just figured I'd throw the bolt of the gun away too. And I had him back in the corner, and there was all kinds of trash over on the other side of the basement, like shelves, old shelves, and ducting, mostly wood debris and stuff. And by then it was too late in the morning. I didn't want to torch the house because there were too many people going by. The fire department probably would have been there right away. So I just decided just to pile all that stuff on top of them and hope that nobody found them right away. And that's what I did. And by the time I left, it was, I don't know what time it was. It was light out. And loaded all the stuff back up in the car. I don't remember how there was that bag of stuff. So I parked the car at Home Depot. Somehow I got that big trash bag full of all their clothes and the Drano bottles and stuff. Somehow I got that back over to the hotel. I may have driven their car back to the hotel and thrown that in the trunk of my car, and then driven their car back over and parked it. I remember when I parked their car in the store parking lot, the only thing in it was stuff that had belonged to them, like the suitcase full of their like miscellaneous stuff, like laundry and stuff like that. And then after I had all my stuff packed up at the hotel, I checked out of the hotel. It was probably around 8 or so. And drove down the road. There was either a Walgreens or a CVS pharmacy right across from a bank, and the Home Depot there where their car was parked. I left my rental car there in that pharmacy parking lot and walked across the street. And didn't really have a disguise on at that point. I think that's why they got that description of somebody with long hair driving the car, because I think all I had on was my gloves and sunglasses. and drove their car up north, and only made it about halfway, and then I started just like a whole bunch of things. I realized that their car had issues, and I think it was also almost out of gas, and I was still really amped. I didn't really trust myself to rob a bank because I hadn't slept all night, and I was kind of shaky. And so I decided to scratch that. I was thinking I would just park the car. I was going to torch the car. There was an area back down where I buried the guns from before in Vermont, and I was going to drive their car down there and torch it after the bank robberies, but then for some reason I was thinking I could still use the car. I was going to go up to Maine and chill out for a few days and then come back through Vermont, and I was thinking if the car was still there, then I would take the car and maybe still do some bank robberies with it and then torch it, but yeah, I wasn't. By the time I got back, of course, the police had already found it, so that was pretty much it. I went up to Maine, had their cell phones with me. There was people calling them, and I had their card information and stuff. But
How do you know there were people calling them?
Oh, the phones were turned on. Their phones were on. It was their work calling them. I remember I looked through. Only one of the cell phones was working, and at least if what they told me was true, they said the other one was like emergency calls only or something. The plan was expired, but there was one cell phone they had that was working. It seems like it wasn't a very good one, and it seems like it didn't have text messaging. And so when their work started calling, because it was a work day, I think it was either a Thursday or a Friday or something, I thought about answering the phone and telling the person what was going on, that it was a kidnapping, and that they're, like give them the account information. But then I just decided I didn't want to talk to anybody on the phone. If their phone had had text messaging, I probably would have done it, but it seems like they didn't. So I drove, started heading up to Maine. I think I was on the interstate, and I was at a rest area somewhere, and then I realized I should probably turn the phones off. Because the one phone I had in the front with me, I'd forgot about the other phone I had in the back of the car in a suitcase, the one that wasn't supposedly working. But the one I had with me, it rang a few times on the drive, and I finally just took the battery out of it. But the other one, it didn't occur to me that it might still be able to track where it was picking up service or whatever, so I didn't think of that till I got to Maine. I drove straight through. I think I was up for about 30 hours on that one, because I hadn't slept all the night before, obviously. But I think I got to Maine, I was pretty tired, and then it dawned on me that other phone was still on, so I parked alongside the road somewhere in Maine and was digging through the suitcases and found it and took the battery out of that one too, and then drove the rest of the way up to Maine. I think my brothers knew that. I think my brothers knew I'd had a rough night or something, because I was pretty out of it by the time I got up there. I don't really even remember what I did when I got to Maine. I think I just hung out with my brother who lived in Bangor and maybe crashed on his couch for a while. And then we had a bunch of work to do that I'd wanted to do on the farm up there. So we went up north to the farm and.
What's the farm?
It's like 140 acres that my dad had bought in upstate Maine. It's like a maple syrup farm type thing. And there used to be a house there. The house burned down, and there's still a barn. So whenever I would go to Maine, we would usually head up north and camp out in the barn. They had part of the barn converted to like a crash pad or something. And so we crashed there, and I had rented an excavator and to do some work on the place, and there was a party that night, and a bunch of my brother's friends came over, and yeah, that was, I don't remember how, it seemed like I was only there for a few days. We were working on the place, and then I was driving, as I was driving back down to Vermont, I had mellowed out, and was starting to decide, like, plan what I was going to do next, and stopped at that park, the National Forest in New Hampshire. For some reason I was still really amped up. There was this parking lot up in that place in New Hampshire. There was a white Dodge Neon, and it had "Just Married" written on the back window. And there's this young couple. They were hanging out down by the river, and I was watching them for a while. That was after I had gone up. I decided at that point that I wasn't going to do the ransom thing. I didn't think it would work that well anyway, because I didn't have a picture, all I had was their cell phone, so didn't think it was going to be worth it. So I just decided to burn the suitcases and all that stuff. So I went up in the woods there in New Hampshire, and on my way back down, I saw this couple down the river. I don't know. I remember what I was thinking. I was thinking the gun I had, the .22, I was like, well, I'm going to have to throw the barrel and the bolt away anyway. I should use it again. And, but there was fortunately for that couple, there was a park ranger. I didn't see him, but I saw his truck, so I figured he was out in the woods somewhere. I didn't want to take the risk that he came walking out of the woods or something, So yeah, I just hung out there and watched him for a while, and then I went, started driving back to Vermont. Drove past where I parked the car in that parking lot, the apartment complex. That's where I had moved after I came back from driving their car up to the bank. I left their car at that apartment complex. And then parked my car a few spaces away and moved all the stuff out of their trunk, all their suitcases and stuff. I moved it into the back of my car. But anyway, I drove back by on my way through Vermont, and I saw the crime scene tape, and I saw that I think at that time the dumpster right next to where I parked the car, I think that was gone too. So I knew that they were taking it seriously, and at that point I was glad that I hadn't used the phone or tried to do the ransom thing. I honestly didn't expect the cops to get on it that fast. I just figured, because I was going to have, originally I was thinking I would keep them at that house and maybe stay in Vermont another night, or at least keep her alive and have her call into her work. And but the house was just too close, like there was too much traffic, and I was worried about hanging out in the area with all that stuff. But yeah, that's what I was thinking originally, is that if she had called into work, told them that there was an emergency or something, that they never would have got the search warrant on the house. The cops never would have even gone by. But as it was, they figured out pretty quick that there was something not right about the situation. And so by the time, I think it was less than a week, I was in Maine. So by the time I drove back down through, I realized that they already knew something serious had happened just from the crime scene tape. And there was a ferry that crosses, what's that big lake there? I think it's Lake Champlain. And I was going to take the ferry back across to New York. I stopped at a little gas station and picked up a newspaper and was reading the articles about their disappearance. And sure enough, there was quite a bit in there about their disappearance. Like, it was clear that the police already suspected the worst because they had the family they did a press conference, and the family, I guess they did an appeal to the public or appeal to the kidnappers or whatever. And I didn't see that until later, but I read about it in the paper, so I just decided it was better to get out of Vermont and go back to New York. So I went back to New York and hung out there for a day or two. And that's when I found that little boat launch. Did some fishing there and decided that was a good spot to drop the guns. I was going to keep their gun, but I decided it was pretty obvious that it was a brand new gun, and I was pretty sure it would be registered to them, so I figured it was probably better if I just tossed it. I didn't want to have it buried in the same bucket with mine, so yeah, I tossed it in that reservoir along with the parts from the Ruger.
And you tossed them in the same spot, right?
Yeah.
That's what you told us last time.
Yeah, unless the ice moved them around, they shouldn't be more than 10 or 15 feet apart. All three of those things, the barrel's out further. It's a heavy barrel, so
It was pretty good weight, but they were actually very close together. So your
they
estimate's
found them.
right.
Awesome. They find the bolt.
Yeah. I was surprised. I wasn't sure.
Did they drain the reservoir?
No. They're pretty good at what they do. What kind of stock did you have on the 22 that you disposed of?
I didn't get rid of the stock.
I know you didn't, but there's a couple that we found.
Well, there's almost 2 complete guns there, if I remember correctly. There's the one I built a few years ago. I didn't build it, I modified it. And then there's the newer one. The newer one is the one I used. That's the one that was my baby. I worked on that for a long time in Alaska. And that was what I was carrying the whole time I was back east. But it had it's the one with I think it was like a green laminated stock, and then the other one had a fiberglass stock or plastic stock. It used to be a folding stock that I had modified.
Was the laminated one, did it have a pattern or anything on the stock?
Yeah, it's laminated. It's got 2 different types of wood. It's like a plywood, and they laminate green and blonde or beige tan wood together.
Was that the weapon that you used when you shot Bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
You said in your kit you had a pan and water, and what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you boil water for?
I'm not going into the details of all that.
But you didn't do that, or did you? He said it fell down through the hole.
Yeah, I had it. I was using it.
Yeah, I was curious about that too. Did you retrieve it?
Oh yeah.
The camp stove?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking the same thing as Jeff. It fell down through the hole. I didn't know if you went down.
Yeah, it fell down. There. It was weird. There was a hole from the living room. The living room was right below where that bedroom was, and I think it was like an old stovepipe hole or something. But it went up right through the floor in the bedroom, and I had the little camp burner thing set up, and it tipped over at some point and fell down through that hole. But I went down and got it right away because it went out when it fell through. But yeah, I was paranoid that it might
start the house on
yeah,
fire while you were in it.
leak propane.
You mentioned that work had called on their cell phones. How did you know it was work?
I think I checked recent calls, and that was just a assumption I made, I guess. it was right around the time that they should be getting to work, and I was expecting someone to call because I had asked both of them like where they worked and what they did and who was going to be looking for them and what their names were and stuff. And yeah, so I think that's why I thought that.
Do you remember what the display of the phone said when you checked it? I mean, did it have a name, or
I think it was a name.
Did it say work, or I'm just?
I think it was a name, but I'm not sure.
Do you remember when you left the house, whether the police car was still parked in the driveway?
Yeah, it was still there. Yeah. Yeah, from that bedroom window upstairs, I kept looking out the window at that. Because I had, there was like either a couple other small mattresses or, I think it was doors, like the doors that were taken off the hinges. I took those doors and I put them in front of the windows so that people wouldn't see my headlamp up there. But I could still look out and see, just in case anybody pulled into the driveway. But yeah, it was like once it started to get light, that's when I decided that I was gonna kill her that morning because I was originally thinking that I would tie her up and keep her there, or maybe stay another night in the hotel and then come back the next night and go from there. But yeah, there'd been too many things that went wrong on that one, and she almost got away, and I just didn't want to take the chance, and the road was really busy, so I just decided to kill her that morning and just get away from the house in case anybody had noticed, that there was a car there or something. But when I was driving back through Vermont, I planned my route back through Vermont so that I could come back on that road into Burlington. And I drove by the house. I knew it was unlikely that anybody had found them yet, but I just wanted to see, I guess, kind of see it in the daylight. And I was tempted to stop and check on the bodies and stuff, but it seems like it was in the afternoon and there was quite a bit of traffic, so I decided not to stop and just kept driving.
You said that you heard or saw that they found their car parked in, was it an apartment?
Well, I saw that. I drove. It was on the same route, basically back towards the freeway that goes up north. To where the ferry to New York, so that's the route I was driving. I passed the house and then I passed the apartment complex where the car had been, and I saw that there was the crime scene tape there, and I saw that the car was gone, so I knew that they had found it. But then I read it was in the paper too, and I picked up the paper right before getting on the ferry. I was reading about it. They found that.
So then on that trip, then you drive back to Chicago?
Yeah, eventually. Yeah, I don't remember how long I stayed in New York. That wasn't long. Maybe a day or two after on my way back.
So just to make sure I understand, you came back from Maine, and you stopped at the campground there in New Hampshire briefly.
Right.
And that's where you disposed of the suitcase and stuff. And that's where you saw the just married couple and the park ranger. And then from there you continued back to Burlington.
Yep.
And that was when you saw that the car was gone. The
Right.
crime scene tape was there.
Yep.
And then you decided to head back toward New York.
Yeah.
And you found the reservoir there and went ahead and...
Yeah, it was the same reservoir that I had been... when I was fishing in New York, I had a few places staked out for a couple nights, but there wasn't a lot of traffic. So it was pretty slim pickings. So I mostly just fished when I was there in New York. But I had been camped on that same reservoir basically. And then when I drove back through New York, I drove around to the other side of the reservoir and found that boat launch. And found the area where I could stash the guns and stuff. So.
Are reservoirs a particularly good place to fish, typically, or?
Not really. Not if you don't have a boat.
All right, well, anything else at this time?
No. That pretty much wraps it up.
All right, well, I think this is going to go a long ways to appease everybody, and hopefully.
Yeah, it looks like they got their work cut out for them. It looks like a big landfill.
The landfill itself is pretty good size. There's a lot of places that feed into it, but they did a good job of narrowing the scope down and stuff. And so it's going to take a little while because, again, there's a lot of stuff there, and you got to go slow so people don't get hurt. But they're pretty confident.
Yep.
Well, and again, hopefully some of the information you give makes it a little easier, so they don't have to spend as much man hours and time working there. We know what we're looking for, and
yeah, if they dumped it out of a dump truck, though, it could be all separated by now. They might have to
apparently
find bits and pieces.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how they stack the trash there.
Yeah.
I showed you printed out a couple of things, but I didn't bring them with me. I was going to show you a couple of pictures of the guns that we fished out of the reservoir and see if they ring any bells for you. But
Yeah, I want to see pictures.
pretty confident they're the right ones. Not all
Yeah.
Did you leave them in the?
Yeah.
It would be quite the coincidence if they weren't.
Yeah, that was kind of our feeling too. So,
It would be a little eerie, wouldn't it?
yeah. Maybe somebody was watching you when you were there.
Yeah.
All right. Tell you what, should we step out here real quick?
Maybe you want to go
Yeah.
retrieve those.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll be right back.
Well, and I think we've told Kevin and Mr. Feldis and Mr. Russo and all of us explained to you from the get-go that the advantages to consolidating this and keeping it all with the U.S. Attorney's Office up here, and
Right.
this is going to help us convince Vermont that we've been working on the same, that what we're doing is working. You know what I mean? And that we were right in this, and that
Right.
the level of cooperation that we had with you is working, and that we think it can continue to work. But we are in a point where and that's why we're here today, trying to get this to assure them, and that's why we came to you with some of what we could get for you.
Okay.
With what we want to assure them that we think we have this relationship, that it can stay here, and that doesn't need to be, you don't need to be traveled around to any other jurisdictions.
Right. That's what I'm hoping.
Okay, so but our bosses are, everybody's bosses are pressuring them to continue to move forward and assert this cooperation that we have with you. And so we're the same difficulty we had up here. We're going to have to eventually convince Vermont that you're still talking to us, and there's no reason that they need to be public and going forward with charges right away or anything like that. So
that is important that they know that, especially the publicity thing, because I've said this before, but I would hope that they would realize from the things I have talked about so far that by going public, they do not stand to gain very much information. And certainly not by talking to anyone I know. They're not going to gain any information.
Well,
any information they do get by going public with me and places I've been or things I might have done, at the best, they're going to get tips from unreliable sources, whereas and that's frankly going to make me not want to cooperate anymore, just because I lose my incentive to cooperate.
I understand that, and that's kind of why we agree with that. We would really like to be the ones initiating, if anything, just like this happened in Vermont, is happening, rather than having local Essex-type small police departments out there investigating on their own based on some small little tip that we may have. So we like getting the facts directly from you so that we can go exactly where we need to, and we're not fishing, so to speak. Because, literally, that's what it's going to be in some places, right?
Yeah.
So,
good point.
Yeah. So, but like I said, we're at a point where we're convincing our bosses, the lawyers are convincing their bosses that we have an ongoing relationship where when the time's right, that there's going to be continued communication between us.
Yep, sounds good.
And so, we know that you want Kimberly's truck returned, and that's important to you. You said that last time. And so that's going to be a big hurdle for the investigators and the lawyers, but not one that they can't overcome.
I should hope not.
All right, but I think that our bosses, I know that the investigators' bosses especially, want some type of indication from us that if we go to that big step of releasing some type of what they deem as, you know that in most cases evidence is not released until the disposition of any case is over. So that's typically the way things go. So we're having to fight that battle. And so, our bosses are kind of pressuring us to say, we think we can make this happen, but where are we going from here?
Why is our situation or your situation special?
and here's what we tell them. We think it's different because you have information to offer us. All right. And so I think that
but that doesn't mean the information is going to come right away.
I know that. But I'm just saying that I think that that's one way we can make something like this, convince them that this is the right thing to do.
All right.
All right.
Well,
and
I know it's out of your hands, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what they do.
Well, it's not entirely out of our hands. It's in our hands and it's in the lawyer's hands, but I have to have some type of assurance. And they're flat out coming out and telling me, well, if Israel Keys wants to give us another body or tell us something like that, then let's see if we can work something like that out.
No, the way it works is Kimberly gets his car, or I guarantee you're not getting another body from me. Kimberly gets her car, or maybe I said that wrong. Kimberly doesn't get her car, I guarantee you're not getting another body from me.
And so can I at least tell them that instead of putting it that way, because not like that those examples.
No, I know that's.
How about if I say
sell this?
How about if I say something like, I think that if we show good faith and we work towards getting this vehicle back, there's a chance that Mr. Keys will provide us with that type of information so that we can do the same thing wherever that might be that we're doing in Vermont. Because the longer this goes, the harder it's going to be to keep that. And then the other thing is too, we have to do the U.S. Attorney's Office is going to have to do the same thing in Vermont that kind of happened here, and we're going to have to convince Vermont that this is something that U.S. Attorney's Office that we're getting additional information. So let's all work together to do this. So I'm just putting that out there for you that those are the kind of things that's
right. But as long as they understand that it puts me in a somewhat of a difficult situation, because I think I've made it clear throughout this that my interest is to keep this case and to keep current information they have about me and the things I've done moving as quickly as possible. I know it's, maybe I may not have totally realistic expectations.
I think you're
about
seeing
that,
some of that.
but I still want to, see things moving forward. So my hesitation at this point is, it's not that I'm not willing to give you or them more information prior to the couriers. It's just that I'm concerned with how long this is taking. It's been less than a year since this happened, and as we can see, it's they're having to jump through even more go to even more trouble than I ever expected to put the pieces together, even with the information I gave them. And I can say for certain that anything else I talk about it's going to be even harder for them to, because like I say, it's only been a year, and my memory is I don't keep a journal of this stuff. I don't keep addresses, and some of the places I've been, they're in my head, but I don't without actually seeing them again, and it's not very fresh in my memory, and time tends to move things around, obviously.
and that actually might be a good reason to if you want to continue to cooperate, doing it sooner rather than later, because one of the things that we have been very successful at reminding folks of, whether that's the prosecutors here or in Vermont, and regardless of the level, our bosses, everybody else, is that not only are you cooperating, but you're providing very good, detailed, accurate information. And that's key, because like you say before, it saves us a lot of time and resources, and to the extent that you provide those details, they're your details. But if you don't, then they become our details.
Right.
And then, we are not necessarily held to the same agreement that we are when you provide the details.
Right.
And like you said, maybe inaccurate, and maybe very inaccurate, and that's the kind of thing that is going to throw the whole media frenzy off, and so that we're trying to avoid that. I think our attorneys have done an excellent job of that, and
I think so too. And I've been impressed with that aspect of it. How much, especially up here, I know that I'm sure the media is hounding them daily for more information about me in general, and that's been good. That they've been able to keep a lid on it for the most part. And honestly, no matter how long this thing drags out, like you say, as long as I keep cooperating and providing information, that's better for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's better for
certainly is.
It's better for the victims, and it's better for me, and it's better for you guys, because you're going to have less paperwork and stuff to follow up on, tips and who knows what else. So.
It gives us the potential, instead of approaching this thing with a shotgun,
Right.
to approach it with a rifle.
Right.
And everybody recognizes the benefit of that, and I think we've done a good job of leveraging that so far, and I think that we can continue to do that going forward.
All right.
And I know initially you told us that you don't feel any moral obligation to tell us these kind of things, but you understand from our perspective in law enforcement, that's one of our main goals, is to try to to
Right. No, I know you want to
close the book.
close open cases, and
we do that. We want to do that for some families that are out there going through some tough
right.
things.
I understand what your motivations are,
Okay.
but you obviously my motivations are different than
Yeah.
most people. So yeah, I don't feel the same moral obligation. I guess obviously I don't think in those terms that a lot of people do. So, but I am willing to continue to provide information if if we can continue to work together. That's all there is to it.
How about, can you give me, you remember when we talked about the specific tools that you'd be interested in? Well, and one of the things with your trailer itself is yours. It's not
Right.
anybody else's, so releasing it to anybody else is going to be difficult. But if there's some specific items that you say are Kimberly's, if you'd tell me what those are.
Honestly, I don't know at this point because I don't know exactly which tools were in the trailer. I know
Okay.
there was a good deal. There was a lot of stuff in that shed, and I imagine that virtually everything in that shed was taken with the shed when they took the shed.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember what was where. And
Okay. How about just what's hers, and if we have it, then do you remember? Or you said she had at least some ownership.
yeah, there was records that I kept of that, receipts from tools that I bought specifically for her house with money.
Is that in your
issue.
filing cabinet?
It was, but it is in there, but it's going to be buried. I mean,
Okay.
it's not something I'm concerned about, I guess, but not nearly as much as I am about her getting her car back.
Okay. All right.
Because, and if they, obviously, like I've said, they're not going to take my word for it necessarily, and I know that there is evidence that I used, her car in the commission of certain crimes.
But we're not talking about
Right,
that.
we're not talking about that. I'm saying that there's nothing else that, aside from what is known about her car, there's nothing else
Okay.
that they're going to find. So.
All right. Well, like I said, I'm going to go to that with my bosses, and the attorneys will go to their bosses, and we'll do what we can. That's one of the things they wanted me to. I think that it would really help if I could express to them that I think if we do this, that we're going to make some headway and we're going to get another victim.
Well,
So.
maybe not right away, but
Okay.
but yes, eventually, we see how things go. I know how this works, though. I know that you're not obligated to keep your word or whatever it may be. I know. I know exactly where I stand in this. I'm the one in handcuffs, and I'm not getting out. So I don't. As far as all this goes, there's things that I want to happen, and then there's that doesn't mean that is the way that things are going to happen.
But that we all have bosses, and so
Right.
I have my guidelines that I'm instructed to do, and I'm just laying them out there for you.
Yeah, I know.
So.
And keep in mind, too, that to the extent that you can not only continue to cooperate, but give us information or position that is easier for us to pass on to our bosses, it makes it easier for us to sell things to them, too. So if you say, well, yeah, eventually you'll get another body out of it if we can execute this transaction, it's difficult for us to be honest about what you've said and have that come across in a positive spin for the bosses, because the way they look at it is, hey, we never do this, and we don't know how things are going to turn out with pending cases and whether or not that may have been used in other crimes, the whole 9 yards. So whether it seems this way to you or not, we have a very high hurdle that we have to get over to try and convince them of this, because literally this kind of shit never happens.
Right.
Jeff and I, we've been doing this 15, 16 years each. And I'm telling you, this kind of thing never.
I know, you don't bend over backwards for the criminal. I don't blame you.
So we're not saying it can't happen, But you're just putting us in a difficult position if it's something that nebulous. And, you know, I hate telling you that, but I'm being honest with you. I think we've told you before, you know, there are going to be times we can't tell you everything, and we'll tell you that, but we're not going to lie to you. There's no need.
You know, the other thing too we could do is, how about I know when we started this Vermont thing, all you said was Vermont, and give you something in Vermont. Is there something? Can we go and say, tell Vermont we're going to get something in Arizona? Or, I mean, can you give us a state?
I start giving you states.
It's a starting point, is all I'm saying. To express to not only Vermont but my bosses and that kind of stuff. So,
And kind
just
of
throwing it out there.
Yeah, and kind of on that note, one of the other things that I don't know if Jeff mentioned while I was out of the room, but you know, we're getting a fair amount of pressure from Vermont, especially at the state level, because it's a little bit more difficult to control what happens there, about whether or not there are other victims in Vermont. And I know previously you've said that there are no bodies in
Right.
Vermont, but they're very concerned about whether or not basically other folks were kidnapped or other crimes were committed in their territory, and maybe the body's not there. So technically what you've told them is true or correct. But they're worried that there are other unsolved crimes there. And
In particular, kidnapping, homicide.
yeah, exactly.
No.
And
There are no more kidnappings or homicides that I'm responsible for in the state of Vermont.
okay.
So can you give me a state that we could throw out there
No.
to somebody?
No, I'm not going to talk about anything. I will tell you that about Vermont because I understand their concerns, the locals' concerns. But I'm not going to talk about anything prior to Vermont because
Well, we appreciate that you saying that. You know, Texas has the exact same, for obvious reasons, they have the exact same concerns because of the time that you spent down there and that
Right.
your arrest down there. So we're getting a lot of heat from the rangers and the people in Texas to give them information. And frankly, we've had to, you know, we're keeping them out of the loop. But how about Texas? Missing,
well, no. Aside from what I've told you about Texas, there's
no missing people
No.
from Texas.
And maybe, again, maybe one way to look at this is we've got these various horses, whatever you want to call it, that we're trying to hold the reins on and kind of keep control of this for obvious reasons that we've already discussed, so I'm not going to belabor that. But we're trying to keep a hold of these horses, and to the extent that we can keep them satisfied or happy, it's going to be a lot easier than if we don't. And
Right.
right now, what's keeping them happy is the information and knowing that there's continued cooperation. So
Right.
it's not just a function of the different bosses that we all have, and not just a function of the prosecutors versus the officers and that type of thing, but different jurisdictions too. So
Right.
again, trying to give you a window into where we're at and what we're trying to accomplish. And I know it's difficult, but whether it seems that way or not,
And I'm willing to continue talking about anything that I've already talked to you about. Any additional details you need. I'm just not ready at this time to talk about any other states or any other timelines aside from those. Because for the reason you just laid out, it's going to bring more people into the mix, and I don't want to do that at this time unless we can continue to work together, I guess.
and I understand that, but consider the reason that we're trying to educate you on this is because other people are going to come into this, whether we want them to or not. But I would rather bring them in using a rifle to target what we're doing to target
Right.
crimes rather than a shotgun.
Same way we did Vermont.
Yeah, and whether Jeff and I want to or not, other folks, other jurisdictions, other agencies are going to come into this in the very near future. And our ability to focus their interest is going to be key in keeping them happy. And if they're not happy, we will not be in control.
Well, we just wanted to
Yeah.
present that to you, that we think that Kimberly's vehicle would be much easier to convince them if we were on the cusp of being able to tell them that we're getting somewhere else. So,
Do you think
think on that for a couple of days? And
All right.
like I said, we've made arrangements with Sergeant Chandler that you can reach out and it's not counted against you for any phone calls or anything like that. And so we'll give you that. I'm not sure how whether you can keep a piece of paper, how you.
Yeah, you probably can. So we'll give you a piece of paper.
It's not a big deal.
To get your.
I probably won't be calling you.
Okay.
That's fine. I mean, again, it's your call.
I would ask that you mentioned other agencies. I don't know how much my background is being researched at this time. If
Right now, we're the only ones doing anything like that.
okay, I just want to say that no matter how long this thing goes on, no matter how many other people get involved, if other people, other agencies, other states think they have something on me, then and they want more information from me regarding it, then it would behoove them to talk to me about what they think I did before they go public with it, because once it goes public, that's it. I'm not talking anymore.
So if something like that were to happen, we could assure them if they were right or on top.
Yeah, if somebody thinks they have something on me, and they're going to try and bully me with it, or go public, or start questioning old employers or friends I have. If they think that they can go that route and get what they want, then more power to them. But I'm just saying that if I hear about that or see that, then that's when I become a clam. I'm not.
But what I'm also hearing is that if they presented something like that to you and you weren't responsible, you would talk about that.
Yeah, and like I say, eventually I may be willing to talk about a lot of stuff. At this point, I'm just not convinced. I've talked to you about the things I've talked about because, like you say, it all happened pretty recently, and for the most part, I've been convinced that, with a few exceptions, that I was going to be connected to it eventually anyway. So it was kind of like one of those sooner or later situations for me. And with the rest of the things, frankly, I'm at this point convinced that it's like a later or never situation. So if they want it to be later as opposed to never, then let's keep working together. If they want to strike out on their own and do it by the book, like the way whatever techniques they normally use, and then more power to them.
That's where we want to get to. We want to get to that point where you're talking about other things,
right.
And so we're just trying to get there.
Yeah. And it's also very, very difficult for us. It's virtually impossible, frankly. I hate to say this, but it's virtually impossible for us to notify all the different law enforcement agencies in the country that, hey, if you have a crime that fits this general set of circumstances, let us know, because we might have somebody that would be willing to talk to you. It's very difficult for us to do that without drawing a whole lot of attention that we frankly don't want, because we just can't control it. So it's very difficult for us to do kind of what you're asking and say, and have the agencies come to us on the front end, as opposed to going out and interviewing. If they somehow on their own start connecting things to you, they're going to do what we would all do as cops and say, well, I think Israel's a good suspect for this, and they're going to start doing their background and figure out who your friends and relatives are, and they're going to start talking to them. And it's not because they're trying to be malicious or anything like that. It's just because it's really not.
And we probably won't be helping. So,
yeah.
But before they do that, they're going to contact you.
Not necessarily. I wish that were the case.
Why wouldn't they? To get information on the things that I've already done, wouldn't they contact you firsthand to find out?
I think it could depend. One of the reasons they might not contact the local people is because they might hear that we're not cooperating, because what we're trying to do, like in Vermont, is keep this here. And so all the details aren't being shared for very good reasons with everybody. And so if they know that's the response they're going to get up here is no comment, which is what they're getting. I mean, it's to the point where I'm telling you that officers, me everybody involved in this is direct orders not to discuss it. We're not
Right.
discussing this with anybody, family or anybody.
Well, I
So-
would suggest that if a different jurisdiction, aside from the ones we've already talked about, contacts you with questions about me as a suspect, that you, at the least, not necessarily tell them any information about what I've done or what, the things we've talked about, but that you at the least keep an open line of communication with them so that they know that you have an open line of communication with me.
And we'll definitely do that, Israel. I'm
I
not.
mean, if
worried
you want to
about-
bring people in on conference calls or whatever, if they have stuff they want to ask me about, I'm fairly open to that. I'm not going to sit here and say yes, I'm going to confess to everything at this point, but I'm open to it.
and we understand. I guess all I'm trying to do is just make you aware that as much as I hate it, we don't always learn about suspects in cases and stuff, even when we are involved somewhat tangentially, because Alaska, we're way the hell up here.
Right.
And we're not on everybody's radar, especially down like in Texas, for example, as you can relate to because you were down there.
Right.
So all I'm saying is keep in the back of your mind that we're not always going to be on the leading edge of the wave, and we're not always going to get a call ahead of time from an agency saying, hey, we think that Israel may be responsible for this. Here's the evidence we have. We'd like to talk to him. That call, if it comes, may come after they've already done a lot of follow-up and talked to a lot of people. And so that might cause you to jump to the conclusion that, hey, they basically don't want to play together and cooperate, and that might not be the case.
All right.
So I'm just saying there are two different perspectives here, and to the extent that we have the information kind of on the front end, and we can call them up and say, hey, we've got some information about this case that may help you, we can duplicate what we've done in Vermont, which, as you mentioned earlier, has been very effective. And frankly, I'm impressed for what we've done there. I mean, we've been very successful keeping that under the radar.
I'm astounded that this has not gone viral.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, really? Pretty impressive, don't you think?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure if my name had popped up at all on that, then
Yeah.
the media would be having a heyday whether they had anything from me or not.
But it's a daily struggle upon our organizations as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office. So, I mean,
So again, we're not, whether it seems like it or not, we're not trying to talk you into anything here. We're just saying, look, this has worked very well so far.
Right.
And I think it can be beneficial for both parties moving ahead. You can have, two parties can have different destinations and still travel the same road, at least to a point. And
Hey,
that's all.
like I've said before, everybody in this room wants the same thing,
Yeah.
but we just have different ways we're going to go about it.
yep.
I get it. I tell
You
you
want
what.
to see these couple photos?
Yeah, I grabbed very quickly. As you can tell, I was only gone for a short period of time, so I didn't grab all of them. But you're going to recognize all this stuff. But I'm just going to cover my bases here on this. I'm guessing, based on your description of the stock, this was the one that was
Yeah.
used on the weapon that you shot Bill with, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And this was the other one I think that you described to me.
Yep.
Okay. And this looks like it's going to be the receiver
Yeah.
from the weapon that shot Bill with the silencer, obviously. I guess I don't have the other photo. And obviously, you can see the bucket. So anyway, these are just a couple of the photos. That
Oh, those aren't mine. I don't know.
we both know that's not true.
You know where somebody else's stash is then, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You saw that great-looking silencer and you just walked away.
I'm
from it.
psychic.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
I can't think of anything else.
Nope.
Can you? All right.
So, anything else that you want us to do?
No, I think we're making
We're
progress.
going to work on that. We're going to discuss it with everybody involved and see what we can.
All right.
And I can tell them that I think we can move forward if we can make this happen.
I'm going to go ahead and keep these.
Yeah. Oh, I know it's going to move forward with or out without me, but yeah, if we can make it happen, then move forward with me. So
it's like you say, it's better for everybody. There's no
And we
doubt.
will get, I don't know if you're in communication at all with Kimberly or anything, but we'll get this to her this week. These things, get it back to her. Okay?
I'll be waiting to hear.
Okay. All right.
It is go off tape. It's about 6:10 p.m. by my watch.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want more evidence in this case, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and also leave a comment below because I would love to know what your thoughts on this are. My name's Victoria Evans. Be safe out there.